Hi, Soul Family. Well, we've made it. We've made it on the aspect game, and here we are to learn about the fifth aspect. So far, we've covered conjunctions. This is our scrambled eggs merged energy. Secondly, we looked at the aspect of oppositions, where it was the rope with the 180-degree oppositional energy reaching towards the other end of the axis to bring harmony and balance. Then we looked at trines, the triangles, the gifts that we come in fully loaded with, or the people or experiences that will help us on this earth school. And then our fourth aspect on the aspect game were sextiles, where we were finding the guiding lights, the hidden, subtle, harmonious energies for us to help us also navigate our third dimensional incarnation here now. This last one, the squares. Okay, here's my image. Some of us can learn when the universe touches us with a feather, attention, attention. But if you're like me, the square will not be noticed until the hammer comes in, or the mallet. So when you think of a square, think of an opportunity to go deep, to really learn. And so going back to this idea that we're here to expand our consciousness, we can't expand if we're just in bliss all the time. So it does take squares and oppositions, the rope. Okay, so it takes sometimes a rope and squares to help us push forward. All right, so let me get to the screen. Again, we are in section 6.7. You're going to have that embedded in your minds pretty soon. And here we have Julia talking about the square aspect in the aspect game. So what is a square? A square is 90 degrees of an angle. So here we have the fixed star, Mother Earth, where we're sitting now, and its angle to a planet. So if you show a square in your soul journey connections, this is saying it's a 90-degree hard, they call that a hard aspect. So soft is pleasant, trines, sextiles. A hard aspect is, typically on a harsh angle, oppositional, square. Okay, so there you get a visual of what are they talking about with a square. So let's say you have a fixed star called Procyon, and it is squaring Mother Earth with, let's just say, your Pluto. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to bring us back and stop sharing. Here I am. So again, the metaphor, if you can learn your squares consciously with being tapped with the universe saying, hey, you can learn the easy way, or you can learn the third dimensional human way, typically is bring my attention, hammer this to help support me. So it's not for harm, but it's for growth. Sometimes, like I have a son, he won't move off the couch until you kind of give him motivation. And so I look at squares sometimes as motivation. Okay, what's the lesson of the square? I'm going to call it how to find the best version of yourself when you track your squares. All right, so why? Well, it's because that's where the wisdom is. By transcending some of this energy coming toward us for our own expansion, it's the unresolved trauma. Okay, unresolved trauma. Now, Julia has cited this many times, and so I'm going to bring this up. This is what's called the Galactic Heritage Card Deck. It's by Lissa Royal Holt, and you can get it on Amazon. But let me tell you, the reason Julia cites the guidebook is because you can get a very condensed version of galactic history, how we start with source, and then source wanted to know itself by expansion, and so there are founders, and from the founders it fractalized into Lyra, and then from Lyra, boop, 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 lots of other star nations. But it gives you a what were they thinking? Okay, so I bring this up around squares because you're going to find that if you embrace certain aspects of yourself that may not be earthbound, let's say I connect with Andromedan energy or Vegan energy, I'll use Vega. I'm gonna look and go deeper into what was the issue with Vega? Why did they move? And sometimes if they moved, but they didn't deal with the trauma or unresolved conflicts from that move, a forced move, then you kind of keep bringing it with you. You know, it doesn't just go away by itself. It needs awareness, and it needs a particular type of integration. Let it come in, honor its place, and then let it go out. So the energy can just move. Conscious awareness, embrace, let go, done. Okay, so it's a different thing, and as far as like it's more of a cosmic or galactic awareness. I highly recommend all of her books. Phenomenal. Okay, so back to our class. The key word for a square, I'll hold my mallet, is incompatible energies. And these could be incompatible energies to either perspectives, to people, to situations, or even to ET beings, right? In the chat room today, I brought up the work of Byron Katie. She calls it the work, where you actually go through the self-diagnosis of some simple questions. So if you start doing readings and want to learn about a helpful mechanism to ask people questions so that they find their own answers, do check out Byron Katie's book. I think it's called The Work. Okay, so with going back to squares, 90 degrees, got the mallet. Scenario 1 that Julia brings up in the class, if you have a square, but you don't have any other aspects to that fixed star in your whole chart, this is what it means. It means that you have a connection to that star system, but you didn't incarnate there. We're learning that incarnations in star nations or other fixed stars usually requires conjunction, opposition, and then sometimes there's the breaking the rule where you have to douse and you can ask. Okay. But I'm giving the broad brushstroke here. So scenario 1, you only have one square, but no other aspects to that fixed star. It means you're just carrying that unresolved issue into this lifetime. So good to pause with scenario 1 and think about the trauma in your life that you may find as a recurring issue. Either the same people keep showing up or the issue shows up. So look at the narrative of that fixed star, and soon we will learn together how to read in the sign and the house position to help tease out that bigger issue. Okay, there's a scenario 2 with squares that Julia points out. So if you have a square to a fixed star and you have all these other aspects to that same fixed star constellation, it's the whole constellation. Let's say Andromeda, for instance. You know, here's Andromeda, the constellation. But if I have a fixed star, conjunction, opposition, square, more square, trine, sextile, like there's so many Andromeda connections, then she says, you've probably incarnated there, have past lives there, maybe even future lives. And here is where you will struggle with integration. So underscore, underscore, when you see a repeat constellation or a particular fixed star, underscore it, because there is a life lesson for you to really pay attention to. And then Julia went further and she said, look at the first half of your life. Okay, it's that's usually when the trauma comes in. It's as if the galactic soul aspect of yours is in conflict with your current life identity. So again, imagine going back to Alyssa Royal Holt. What if, like, you know, I have unresolved things in Andromeda and they just keep following me, you know, in all my earthly incarnation, it just keeps following me. And so I got to get the hammer and like hammer it in, like pay attention, and then it becomes as light as a feather and leaves. Okay. Julia also made a comment about looking to see if it's a high frequency fixed star or not. I thought she meant in its physical illumination, because there's certain stars that shine brighter than others. No, she was talking about more from a high frequency for consciousness. I was like, oh boy. So I think she cited Arcturian as one of the high frequency. If it's a low frequency, and she just happened to name a few, like, okay, Draco, Rigel, Altair, or even a lot of the Orion stars, fixed stars, you know, to pay attention, because a square is saying not compatible energy with that house area and planet. If you read further what she writes in the class, she says that the soul experienced something very challenging in relationship to the beings or the lives from those star systems that are squaring in your chart. I have heard her talk about, you want to find the narcissist in your life, if that was one of the life lessons that you're supposed to find. If it was your father, maybe you'll see some squares in the sun connection lines. Potentially, this is my view, the moon would indicate squares to low frequency stars. Like, let's see if it's square to Draco, Rigel, or Altair in the moon line. That might be unresolved karma that's coming in through my mother's ancestral line. Well, what are you going to do? It's just how to play the game, right? Okay, let me share my screen a little bit more. One last little bit. There we go. Okay, here I am. Here's my little cheat sheet. Squares. If no conjunction or no oppositions, that means I have unresolved karma there, or I visited or met someone. But it's not a real heavy duty. It's really when you have so many things happening in your squares. So here's my, here's Ursula's list. Oh my gosh, I have 14 squares. So obviously I've got like 14 little hammers to kind of help me understand. But I'm going to point the conversation in closing to my north and south node are both squaring the fixed star Titawin in Andromeda. Okay, and here's a picture of Andromeda, the chained princess. Okay, and you can look up her story, but basically here she is chained. And Titawin, here's Almach. Titawin is another name, is called, let's see, Upsilon Andromedae. Upsilon, so I couldn't find it. It's the U right here on her left calf or left leg area. There you go. So I know that's what is squaring my south and north nodes. So I'm like, okay, what's the message there? And guess what? I don't have the answer yet because I'm holding space that I just want to set up the mechanics for developing the freeway. It's doing the soils and getting the concrete, all the boring stuff, because we just want to get in our car and go. But doing this work with the aspect game helps us bring in these foundational underpinnings that help us language our star and soul connections. Well, I've had enormous fun because in teaching or sharing in these little mini videos, I had to learn it. And I like to go slow and steady, even though my mind is racing and going, oh, tell me all the stories. But if I grab all the stories now, I'm going to just like eat too much food at the buffet. I want to take my time and think about, what do I want to start with? What's my appetizer? So if you want to play the game, consider not just listing, but doing some little index cards. your conjunctions, your oppositions, your trines, your sextiles, and your squares. Because I tell you, there's magic that happens when you force yourself to do this road paving. Okay, you're going to start seeing, oh my gosh, I have a square, a triangle, or a trine. I mean, I've got all these things. And is there a predominant common denominator as I move forward? And I know the clearer I get with knowing who I am, I know that then I'll be able to offer and give better readings to those who want them in the future. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you again soon in the Facebook chat room. Bye for now.